Hello, everyone, and welcome to this recorded webinar on searching the biomedical databases on ProQuest Dialog, presented by Penny Doan-Setzer. This session will go beyond the basics to look at some more in-depth information, tips, and techniques on how the biomedical and pharmaceutical databases are designed and how you can search them more effectively, with a particular emphasis on using the thesauri that are available in the Medline and Embase databases. This advanced webinar does assume you have some knowledge of ProQuest Dialog basics, although Penny will review some of those topics briefly at the beginning of this webinar. And now, biomedical searching in ProQuest Dialog, Beyond the Basics.
All right, so what did we cover in the basics session? So we did just talk about how to access ProQuest Dialog and how to create your own ID and password and how you'll remind yourself to do that if you haven't done that already. We talked a little bit about the available content, how you get from the content that is in our platform to the full text of the documents that you're interested in reviewing further. We talked a little bit about search defaults and syntax, so as an introduction so that you can take advantage of the real strengths of the platform and how to conduct some very sophisticated or simple searches depending on your need and the occasion. Sometimes you'll do it one way and sometimes you'll do it the other. I also pointed out in the basics session how to access syntax information for those people who are in the midst of a search but can't quite remember some of those details. In the lower right corner of the platform, every page on the platform, underneath the Consumer Knowledge Services logo, there is a View Syntax QRC, Quick Reference Card, which if you click that link will bring up a page that reminds you about all the proximity operators and all the defaults on our platform. So that's always available for you to review, including other ways to access that information. We talked about, during searching, using synonyms as a basic tool in searching to help give you a more sophisticated, well, I won't say more sophisticated, but a more robust search, a more comprehensive retrieval. But there are also search tools within the platform to help you build a more comprehensive search. Sometimes they're useful, sometimes they're less useful, but you have options to use the medical synonyms or the hyperlink. And term mapping, which is when you're in either Embase or Medline, have an opportunity to see what the preferred term for a particular topic in that database, and then using that preferred term, you'll be able to automatically retrieve documents that are specific to your topic and not have to do so much including of synonyms. Finally, we talked a little bit about exporting records. Once you've found some information from our platform that you want to do something further with, you can export them in a number of different formats, so into Word or into PDF if you're using bibliographic citation managers, or even if you want to export into Excel. Those are all formats, and there are in fact a few more that you can use to take your information out of the platform. So let's just remind yourselves of the system defaults, and this is something that you can turn off and on, but the system automatically pluralizes for you. So if you type in a singular form, it automatically knows to pick up plurals. If you type in a plural form, it knows to pick up singulars, and it does do irregular plurals. So again, if you type in child, it'll pick up children and all that type of thing. So that's a built-in tool to the platform that will allow you to pick up that information without having to remember to do that. The same is true of comparatives, tall, taller, and tallest. An important feature then is the US-UK spelling. So for example, if you're typing in the word estrogen, it thinks, okay, we're in global databases, international coverage, and there is an equally useful spelling, except it's the British spelling versus the American spelling, and so the platform automatically picks that up for you as well. Oftentimes you will be in more than one database, and each of those databases has unique coverage as well as possibly some overlapping coverage with some of the other databases, and you don't want to see the same article more than one time, so it automatically removes duplicates for you. So that's a nice feature as well. As I mentioned, you can turn off and on these features at your interest based on your particular needs. So you may not want to include plurals. You may not want to include US, UK spellings or what have you, or even maybe you don't want to have it automatically dedupe. You can set those preferences according to your needs in the Preferences section in the upper right corner of the platform. There is a link to Preferences. If you click on that and you've logged in with your MyResearch ID and password, it'll give you the opportunity to set that according to your specific preferences. Now, our agenda today doesn't look very full, but we will be going through a lot of information, which is why at the end of the session or tomorrow I will be sending a copy of the presentation in PDF format that you can use as a resource to look back at. We're going to be covering how to use a database thesaurus and when do I want to do a single file or a multi-file or even a sequential file search. How do I refine from the results page, because I can do further refinements there using filters, and there's some pretty sophisticated features in the filters that you can use to do a number of different things. We'll talk about that. How to save my search and how to create an alert, and then how do I manage those and where do I look for that information. Finally, you can also set up custom formats within this platform. So when you're exporting information or when you're using an alert, if you don't like the pre-formats that we have created, which would be like a citation or a citation plus abstract plus certain amounts of indexing, if you want to pick the specific fields that you want to export, you can create a custom format and you can also save it to be used in the future as a template. And then I'm hoping at the end of the session that we will have time to take your questions, but we will be covering a lot of information. So let's start with using a database thesaurus. So in the previous session, we kind of alluded to using the thesaurus, but here I'm going to show you a little bit more about using this powerful tool. And again, one of the reasons that you might want to use a thesaurus is it can greatly enhance your retrieval without having to do a lot of work, or it can also focus that retrieval, again, with some sophisticated strategy that's built into the thesaurus, and thereby by taking away some of the pain of having to know command language, you can use our visual thesaurus and make your selections and have that auto load into the advanced search form. So most thesauri are a very structured grouping of terms, concepts. They are created in a hierarchical structure such as what you see here. So for example, they start with broad terms, and they go to narrower terms, and then they go to even narrower terms. And you can see even beyond this, this goes to even narrower terms. So some of these groupings of terms or concepts can go from very, very high-level terms down to very specific terms. And you get the opportunity in the thesaurus to determine how much of that information is relevant to your search and take advantage of that. And it can go from, I want a particular term and all the narrower terms, or maybe I look at a term and I say, okay, I know this, but actually I want to go to a higher level term because I want to cover a broader set of information. So we'll talk about how to use the thesaurus to do that type of searching. On this platform, in the 6 databases that you have, 3 of them each have their own thesaurus. So Medline uses the medical subject headers thesaurus that the National Library of Medicine creates. Embase uses the Emtree thesaurus that's created by Elsevier, and PsycInfo uses the PsycInfo thesaurus. And each of these is slightly different. They're created by different publishers. They have slightly different emphasis, and they work a little bit differently. Some of the topics are they use the same preferred term for a particular topic, and some of them use different topics, and some of them are using similar just to be confusingly similar. So it's worth looking at how you want to use these thesauri. And this is one of the reasons I will actually go into the thesaurus rather than rely on my memory to create my thesauri-based term search. And I do want to remind you that these 3 databases have a thesaurus, but there are 3 databases on our platform that you have access to that do not have a thesaurus. And typically you're going to want to do what we mentioned in the basic search, is to use synonyms to fill out your searches in those databases. Now you can access the thesaurus if you are in a database or any grouping of databases for which one or more of the databases offer a thesaurus. you will, on the advanced search page, see a link appear above the drop-down field to the right of the form, which says thesaurus. And if you click on that, that will allow you to see the different thesauri that are available to you. That will only appear, you won't see that if you're in a database that does not carry a thesaurus. So that is how you access the thesaurus. And it is actually extremely easy to use. And I'm going to walk you through now how you might use that. So I've clicked on the hyperlink, I've selected the M-based thesaurus, and I've typed in the term that is the term that I'm aware of, the topic that I'm looking for. So in this case, I've chosen Motrin. And from there, all I need to do is click on Find, and it's going to allow me to see the list of terms in its thesaurus, which is the hardest part of this topic, is being able to say that. Find where my term is available in the list of terms that are within that thesaurus. So you can see that, in fact, in the M-based thesaurus, there are a number of different terms that make reference to Motrin. None of these are actually the preferred terms, and you can see that none of these have a checkbox next to them. There are no checkboxes over here on the right side or other indications that this would be a preferred term. These are cross-reference terms that will get you to the preferred term in any of the databases that have a thesaurus, and you simply have to click on the term that you're interested in. So clicking on Motrin would take me to that spot within the thesaurus, or M-base in this case, where my term is, and you can see here it is. Ibuprofen is the preferred term used for Motrin. So this is the more generic term that is used to pull in records across this database that have to do with the trade name Motrin or any of the records that pull in the generic name ibuprofen. You can see that it actually occurs in what we would call multiple branches of this particular thesaurus, and this is actually the hierarchical form or the hierarchical view. This is where you will oftentimes start when you initiate a thesaurus search. So it is a little bit, it's valuable in that it allows you to see the different branches. You can go up and say, oh, okay, I see that Motrin, ibuprofen, is actually an antipyretic analgesic agent. It's giving me information about my topic. It's a nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory agent. So I could actually go from my term up to a broader class level term using this thesaurus just by looking here. But this is a little bit busy, so I actually oftentimes come over and click on the link here, the relational view. This is above the thesaurus. You'll be able to see that. And when I select that link, it gives me a slightly easier to read view, which doesn't give me quite that level of higher and lower terms displayed, but it gives me the immediate upper terms, the broader terms, and if there were narrower terms, it would give me that next level of narrower terms for me to see. But I can tell that this is my preferred term. It says, okay, here's the term. It's use instead of my term that I was searching on. There is a checkbox to the left of it. There are sticky notes or a yellow sticky notes icon to the right of it, and to the right of that you'll even see what is actually a filter, which will allow us to do some more filtering of this particular topic. So if I was looking for Motrin and I wanted to find out the literature on ibuprofen, so I'm using the preferred term here, ibuprofen, it's going to gather the universe of literature on that drug. I may not need to know everything about that topic. I may be interested in a certain facet of that topic, and that is where this filter icon becomes important. I can click on that. That allows me to see the list of qualifiers or subheadings that are available to link up with my preferred term. And this is going to allow me to focus my search on a particular facet of that topic rather than the entire world of ibuprofen. Now I'm looking for a particular facet of that topic. Now the M-base, we're in the M-base thesaurus. Not all M-base or not all thesauri is set up quite the same way, but the M-base thesaurus has 3 qualifier tabs because this particular database or thesaurus has so many different qualifiers or subheadings that we divided it into disease and drug and device to make it a little bit more compact and easy for you to find the subheadings that are appropriate to your topic. Ibuprofen is a drug topic, so I'm going to select the drug tab, and that allows me to see the different qualifiers or facet of that topic that I'm interested in. So you can see adverse drug reaction or drug comparison. These are all ways to refine my search quite quickly to a particular aspect of the literature that's on my topic, which in this case is ibuprofen. There are qualifier notes within the table here, so I can see, let me tell you what the difference is between adverse drug reaction or drug toxicity. If I don't know how the indexers see that, I may want to use that information to know what they're distinguishing those two to determine whether or not I need to use both qualifiers or if one will do for me. So don't be afraid to use the drop downs here to expose the notes for that. And then there are some in Embase, some additional drug administration terms, and there's quite a few different routes of administration that you can also use to refine your search. So if I was looking for how ibuprofen is being administered and literature on specific routes, I could use the terms that are available underneath this link. So all I need to do here is I've found the term that is the preferred term. I've opened up the qualifiers and said, okay, let me select a couple of these topics, and all I need to do is check a couple of these. And then in the form here, there's a button that says add to search, and if I use that, it automatically loads my search terms and the qualifiers into the advanced search form. And the nice thing about that is I don't have to retype anything. I don't have to know anything about syntax. I don't have to worry about quotation marks or parentheses or hyphens. It's automatically loaded into the platform for me. We'll see that in just a minute. Now, taking a step back with the thesaurus, it has a certain structure in the way that items are indexed has a very specific policy. I think it's worth we spend a moment to look at that, or that will help you understand why did I get this particular record. So publishers generally index all their records with the most specific preferred term that they have available. And so as you saw when we were looking at the hierarchical structure, there are lots of terms that could be on any particular topic. It could be a specific term, it could be a narrower term, it could be a broader term. That record will not include a broader or a narrower term. It'll be indexed with the most specific term that is available in the thesaurus. So to give you an example, if I'm looking at an article that mentions a hip fracture that actually occurred in the femur neck, which is here in this very specific area of that hip, I will be able to find articles that are specifically on femur neck fractures, but they are not indexed also with hip fractures. So if I look for femur neck fractures, I'll pull back records specific to that topic, but I won't get anything narrower than that, and I won't get anything specific to the broader term hip fractures. Okay, that's not so bad, but if a term is less detailed, if it says it had a hip fracture, or even higher level if it had a femoral fracture, it will not pick up the narrower term. So in this case, that less detailed article is looking at hip fractures, but it will not be indexed with the femoral neck fractures. And I can miss this whole section of narrower terms unless I also include that narrower term. So this is where the indexing policies become very important. It's indexed to the very specific level of the term that they have available in the thesaurus. Now, sometimes in order to capture everything about a topic, I want to get all those terms. So I'm going to use a modifier that's called explode, which is going to allow me to retrieve all the documents that are specific to a topic. So when I explode a term, I automatically retrieve documents that are indexed with that term, but then are also indexed with all the narrower terms and all the subsequent narrower terms so that I get this entire inclusion of information about a particular topic. So when I am exploding the term skin, I will pick up records that are indexed with dermis and epidermis, and underneath epidermis, cuticle, and there are narrower and narrower terms, but if I explode that term, I will get everything having to do with all those narrower terms for that subject. So this is going to be a very powerful tool to be able to gather all that information without having to write out a whole lot of synonyms. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is while that explode allows me to capture all the terms under a level of term that I use, not all those terms may be appropriate to my topic. So you can also take a look at the thesaurus and select the items that are of interest to you, and you can explode at any particular level. So, for example, in this case, if I was looking at skin, I might select that level, but I wouldn't explode it because I'm not interested in dander, but I could explode dermis or epidermis and pick up all the terms that are underneath that as well. So just be aware that you have some options there. Once again, once I've selected my topics, I can use the add to search and it automatically loads those selections into the search form. So how to invoke that explode? If I'm interested in taking everything under a particular level, in this case, for example, skin, I can come over here and under the explode heading, there are these checkboxes. And if I select that checkbox, it will pick up everything under that level that I've selected through the entire tree. Very easy to do. Now, there's also another feature here called major. And so I can select major when I'm interested in picking up those records where that topic is emphasized or it's a major part or emphasis of the document. So in this case, if I used dermis, for example, and selected major, then the dermis would be a focus of the articles that I retrieve. That sounds great. You know, I want to get articles that are specifically on my topic, but I do want to caution you that you may want to use that a little bit sparingly. It is possible to miss relevant records when you are using the major limiter. It really emphasizes that this has to be a main focus of the article, but sometimes if you need to gather information on a topic, it could be mentioned in the article, and there may be a number of other topics within that article, but it would be a valid article, and you might miss it if you are requiring it to be a major emphasis. So I tend to use major when I am trying to emphasize a particular topic that might be broad in nature. There might be a lot of records, and I really want to focus in on the things that are specifically about that. So it is there for your use, but I do want to caution you, you could conceivably miss a few records, so I use that not on every occasion. Now again, here we are showing you how to use the thesaurus to auto-load into the platform. In this case, I've done a search on sunscreen, and I have selected that I'm looking for a particular aspect of sunscreens, which is pharmaceutics or formulations. And if I select that item, and then I click the Add to Search button, it automatically loads that into the advanced search form for me. And again, just to emphasize, I don't have to retype anything, and I'm not a particularly good typist, so I don't have to worry about typos. I don't have to worry about what order this occurs in. I don't have to worry about parentheses or quotation marks or hyphens. This is automatically done for me. So it's a very easy tool to use to generate a clean search strategy. The platform actually loads this in here, so if you are interested in learning more about command language and how you would execute this by typing it in, you can take a look at the examples that the platform gives you and follow that example. So this is coming from the Embase thesaurus. It's looking for the exact phrase in the records that are for sunscreen linked to pharmaceutics, and I could type that in, but again, as you're learning or just in general, feel free to use the thesaurus in order to make your selections with checkboxes and have the system automatically load that into the form for you. Now, you can also access the thesaurus even when you are in a multi-search environment. So in this case, I am showing you that we are actually starting out in all 6 databases. And I have done my initial search, or my initial entry, I should say, of my terms into the thesaurus, or from the thesaurus into the search form. just as you saw me using a second ago. So this is the Embase records. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to click in this second search box because that's going to activate the box and prevents overwriting my information in this first dialog box. I also want to mention that I'm going to change my connector here to OR rather than AND because I want to have records that come from the M-tree thesaurus, or in this case I'm going to add in the, for example, the Medline thesaurus or maybe the PsycInfo thesaurus, and they should be OR'd together. Once I have checked that or clicked into that second dialog box, then I can add terms from a different thesaurus. So all I need to do is, again, go back to the thesaurus. It's going to give me the option to select a different thesaurus from above. This is in the upper left corner of that thesaurus box. It says select the thesaurus, and then I just follow the same pattern that I used in order to create my M-tree selection. I would use, for example, Medline or the PsycInfo thesaurus. Now, not all databases offer a thesaurus. We've talked about that. And then there are also some search techniques that take advantage of synonyms. And I'm going to spend a moment looking at that as well. So thesauri can offer a robust list of synonyms. So Medline, Embase, PsycInfo, they all have slightly different areas of coverage, but each of them has a thesaurus that contains notes about their particular topic. The notes help you confirm that you are looking at a preferred term that is about your specific topic, but those little yellow sticky note icons to the right of a preferred term, if you click on that, it will open up a window that shows you the different topics that are within the thesaurus related to this particular term. So like I say, you can use that just to verify that this is in fact the term that I want to use for my particular topic, but this is also generally a rich resource for terms that might be used as synonyms when I need to do that for a particular topic. So in this case, I can look for sunscreen might be also considered anti-sunburn preparation or anti-sunburn agent. There's lots of different terms in here that I can either use as synonyms in a search, or they may help me think of additional synonyms that I can use to broaden my search when I'm not using the thesaurus terms. So that kind of leads me to a question. Sometimes you're going to be doing a thesaurus-based search, and you may come back and say, well, actually, here's a record that's in the database, and I didn't get this record. Why is it that I missed this? Because it's specifically about my topic. So Medline and Embase both offer thesauri, and it's a very strong way to conduct a search that will allow you to pull in a whole bunch of records and then focus those records using qualifiers to get to a specific aspect of your topic. But even within these databases, not all of the records in Medline and Embase have full indexing. So that's an important thing to know about these databases, Medline and Embase. So Medline, about 85 to 90% or even sometimes more of the records within that database on any given topic will carry full medical subject header indexing. So you can pull back using mesh terms, if I'm doing a search using mesh terms, using the thesaurus, a very large amount of information easily using the thesaurus. But I might miss a few records because there are some records about that topic that have not yet received their indexing. So there are several types of document types within Medline, which would be the publisher records or the in-data review or in-process records or even PubMed, not Medline status records. So these do not carry any indexing whatsoever, even though they are living in the Medline database. Now these were added to the database in order to make certain that the database is current and that people are notified that there is topical information out there available to you in some manner. But it does take a while to go from publication through verification, through indexing, and to get that indexed record into the online database. There is a slight time lag, so these records are in the database generally for a short time before they receive their full indexing. But if you want to do a comprehensive search, you need to pick up those records as well. Embase is slightly different because all records, every record in Embase contains Mtree terms. So if you do a search in Mtree or in Embase using the thesaurus, you're going to pull back records. Every record will have Mtree terms, so those indexing terms. But, there's always a but, several document types within Embase actually do not carry qualifiers. So while you might use the Mtree terms and you'll be able to pull a very thorough search, if you are adding in adverse effects or pharmaceutics or drug combination or some type of qualifier to your terms, you have the potential to miss a few records, and that would be articles that are in press or in process. They're in the process of receiving that qualifier information indexing. The conference abstracts, which is a very strong part of the Embase database, actually never receive qualifier information. I'm not certain why they made that editorial decision, but if you're looking for conference abstracts, you will have to modify your strategy so that you are not using qualifiers in that database. So just again, another little change in the way you conduct your search that you need to be aware of. Now, good practice then actually can include synonyms, and in this case, I'm going to show you I'm in the Medline database, a single database, and I'm using synonyms. So Motrin, the trade name, we know that it will appear in some of the literature, but the vast amount of literature out there will be using the term ibuprofen. So here's a couple synonyms that I can use. And as I scroll down below these input boxes, there is Medline document status, and I can select everything except the Medline status. The Medline records are the ones that receive their full or have received their full indexing. So I'm really applying my search terms, my synonyms here, to the non-indexed records in Medline. So that helps me make certain that the focused search, the targeted search that I run using the medical subject headers, is not diluted by records that I'm using synonyms in. And it's just a way of offsetting the search, keeping my search very targeted in Medline. So then what I can do is, here is my initial medical subject header search, and I got a certain number of records. And then here is my search on the synonyms, and which is limited to the non-indexed records. And you can see I actually got quite a few more records. And then once I have looked at those records or just seen how many records I've gotten, I can select each of those, and then I can combine them using this OR. So I want the records from set 1 or set 2, and it will produce set 3, and it is the combination of the two sets. And remember, that's automatically deduplicated for you. So there are some search considerations. Things may change every time you do a search. So there are different things you might want to think about with every search that you conduct. So one of the things I like to talk about is, what about the character and the indexing of any of the databases that you have access to? So is there one or more databases that cover my topic very well? So as we learned in the basics, Medline is a very broad medical database. It's got a deep archive. It's got a thesaurus, which enables me to be able to do a comprehensive search pretty rapidly. Embase, on the other hand, is slightly more human-oriented. It has incredible indexing for the pharmaceutical and device areas. It also has a thesaurus. The Biosis Previews database not only covers the biomedical literature, but it also has a very strong breadth of biological literature, and so it could be, virology and microbiology and some of the things that aren't necessarily related to the biomedical area, as well as in engineering. So if you're doing medical device searching, it might be a good place to look for that, but it does not contain a thesaurus. Additionally, you've got access to Derwent Drug File. That covers the human drug literature, and one of the nice things about that particular database is that every record in that database will carry an abstract, and one that is actually not the author abstract, but was rewritten by an expert in the field that the document or the literature is reporting on, so that you understand even more about what is being contained in the full text of that document. Cosmetic science, covers cosmetic science and technology, but I will tell you, if you're interested in the skin topic, this is a great place to do your searching. PsycInfo is a very deep archive. It actually goes back to the 1800s, but it is focusing on the psychological or the behavioral literature. It also has a thesaurus. So depending on the topic, I can maybe choose one or more of these databases to fill my needs for searching and comprehensiveness. So another thing to consider is, does the available indexing in any one of these databases, one or more of these databases, making my search easier? Is it easier to conduct? Can I get a targeted search retrieval using a thesaurus and maybe the indexing within that to do a search that's very targeted and pretty easy to use? So for example, Medline offers detailed document types. So if you look in the Medline advanced search form, if you're in that database by itself, you'll see case reports, and you'll see clinical trials and specific phases of clinical trials. It also has very granular age group indexing, so that if you're looking for, pediatric or geriatric or a specific group of demographic group, you'll be able to use the Medline indexing pretty easily to be able to identify and quickly retrieve documents for that topic. Embase has the advantage in that it creates preferred terms in the thesaurus terms pretty rapidly, and sometimes Medline's thesaurus takes a little longer to create a preferred term, and sometimes you won't ever find a preferred term for your particular topic in that. It's just the way that those thesauri are created. Biosis Previews, actually, if you're interested in a geographical region, it has indexing within that makes finding literature based on a particular region very easy to use. So that's something that the other two databases doesn't have quite the strength in. So again, looking at the different databases, you may select a particular database or databases that have specific indexing that make it easier for me to find a particular subject. And the other thing that you may want to consider is, how much information do I need? What is the goal of my search? Do I need to pull every record? If I'm doing a drug safety search, I probably need to be pretty comprehensive in my searching, and that will impact the way I conduct my search. If, on the other hand, I'm just looking for some basic information about a topic, then I might approach my search slightly differently. Some of the things you might consider is, again, how many databases do I need to include in my search? If I need to do a comprehensive retrieval, maybe I really do want to search through all 6 databases that I have access to. If I can cover my search pretty adequately using a single database, maybe even taking advantage of the thesaurus or the indexing, if my needs for comprehensiveness aren't quite as strong, but I get a good retrieval, maybe a single database with strong indexing is exactly all I need to do. One of the ways that you might increase the comprehensiveness of your search is to do a sequential single database search. So you could do a search in Medline and take advantage of the indexing in that database. Go to Embase and do take advantage of the indexing in that database, and so on down the line, and then combine them together at the end to increase the comprehensiveness of your search. You can also just do a straight multi-file search across 1, 2, 3, 6 databases, whatever you want to use, which will pull back records from all of those databases, and maybe just do that because I have a series of synonyms that I want to search on. So to give you an example, if I was looking for recent documents about the use of sunscreens in very young children, the Embase database includes a thesaurus. So it has the explode capability to be able to capture sunscreens as a class as opposed to the individual agents that are being used as sunscreens. So I can, again, use explode in the thesaurus to capture that entire class. It's got age-specific indexing so that I can focus in on that grouping of the population that is very young children. There are some additional features which I might not use for this particular search, but There's clinical trial indexing in that database. That's pretty sophisticated. There are conference papers in that database. And remember that conference papers don't exist in the Medline database. So there are certain features of that database that might be all I need in order to tackle a particular search. Or I could look at different databases and pick up the indexing and the strengths of those databases. So here is a list, an example of searching in multiple single databases, so starting out in Embase, and then moving into the Medline database, and then Biosis, and then Derwent, and you can see that I've changed my strategy, generally using Thesauri where I can, and then using my synonyms and applying those to, for example, the title and the substance field, or the title and the abstract and the organism field, depending on the type of search I'm doing. And then at the end, combining them all together, so saying set 1 or set 2 or set 3 or set 4, that combined set is automatically deduplicated. So for any overlapping coverage between those databases, I don't have to worry about seeing that record more than one time. So that's another nice sophisticated feature. Finally, sometimes you just don't want to work that hard, or, I just need a little bit of information. And I can do a cross-file search across all 6 databases using synonyms. And in this case, you can see I've applied them to certain fields like the title or the subject or the substance field. And again, it kind of depends on the search that I'm doing. But I'm just using a series of synonyms in a cross-file search. I'm not taking advantage of the thesauri that are in these databases, but maybe I don't need that level of sophistication in my search. I just need to pull back some information. So I'm going to get a fairly comprehensive pull because I'm using more databases, but it might not be quite as targeted as the searches that I showed you just a minute ago. But do remember, in this case, when you're doing a cross-file search, you want to use synonyms to be able to make certain you're covering your topic well. And again, you can look at the thesauri, and you have different thesauri to choose from, and look up a topic in there. And even if you don't use the thesaurus itself, you can use the notes section to see some additional synonyms you should consider for your synonym search. This is an example of the search that I conducted, just a cross-file search, and in fact, you can see my records are coming from multiple different databases. Now, once you've gotten to the results page, so now we're moving past the search phase, but we're getting to the results page. I promised you there were some interesting things that you could do on the results page as a result of the filters on the right side of the page, and I'm going to show you that now. So you have a number of different filters that you can use to typically narrow your search. Normally what you can do is next to each of these filters, there's a plus sign. If you click on that plus sign, it'll show you the top 5 items for that particular filter. So in this case, we're looking at the record types, and I can see there's articles and journal articles, similar names for different that are coming from different databases. There are reviews, and there are conference abstracts. Now, these are actually hyperlinked, so I could actually narrow my search right here to conference abstracts by clicking on that hyperlink, and it will update my results page so that I'm looking only at that particular document type. So there are, in every one of these filters, you'll be able to click on that plus and see the top 5 items in ranked order. But you can also click on the More Options link, and that will take you to another page that you will be able to view the full list of items that are under that particular filter and some other features that you can take advantage of there. So when I click on More Options, it opens another window, and I can not only see the full list of available items for that chosen field. So in this case, we're looking at record type, articles, journal articles, etc. This is the top 5 that we just looked at, but I can go through and say, oh, there's letters and there's notes and randomized control trials, and you can see that they are generally presented in ranked order. I could actually reorder that if I wanted to into alphabetical order by clicking on the record type, or if I want to put it back in ranked order, click on count. Next to these, you'll see the opportunity to focus in on or get rid of any one of these items. So I can use the check boxes on the include or the exclude in order to focus in on conference abstracts, or I could eliminate the letters. Those aren't interested, I'm not interested in that information, so that when I'm looking at my results list, that I'm looking at the features or the documents that I'm really interested in. So from here, once I've made my selections, click the narrow my results, and it will update your results page so that you're looking at just what you're interested in looking at. But we're not done with this filter. There are other features that you can actually do with this or any of the other filters. So for example, if I'm interested in keeping a copy of that list, if I click on Save List, then this will allow me to choose different formats that I can save this particular display of, in this case, record types, which might not be as interesting as subjects or authors. I can use all of those and save my list in different formats by clicking then Save List. And then finally, one of the other things you can do, and here I've switched over to the subject filter, I have a ranked list of subject terms that were added. This is the indexing that's added by the database publisher. In this case, I'm actually going to select a couple of items, so ibuprofen, and I've also selected paracetamol. And there is another link where if I click Run New Search, I can actually run a full search from the subject indexing that's been added in this database or in the databases that I'm in. And I can then combine these down here using the ands or the ors. So here in this case, I could say, I'm looking for articles where it is indexed with ibuprofen or paracetamol, and I want to see them in both appear in the records that I'm retrieving, or I don't care if they are in one or more of these is in there. But you have an opportunity to run a full new search. Again, you can do that from the filters. Click on Run New Search. You don't have to go back to the advanced search form. You don't have to look at the source. You can just run a new search from here. It's going to be a pretty targeted search at this point. All right. I want to talk for a second about preferences, saved searches, and alerts. So once you have created a search strategy and you've looked at some of the records and you're pretty happy with your search strategy, you may want to save that in order to reuse it in the future. So I can save that as a saved search, or I can create an alert to have that automatically run in the database or databases that I'm in and email me the matching records as they enter the databases. So at the results page, I can, right above the results, there is an opportunity to create an alert or, save my search, create an RSS feed. This is where you'll find that opportunity here. That's one place to do it, but there's actually a second place that you can take advantage of those features, so that if you are on the advanced search form, there is a second tab, which is the recent searches tab, or up above on any page that you're on in the platform, at the very top there is a link to recent searches. If you click that link, then you'll be taken to where you can see the different sets that you've created, and you can hover over the Actions button to the right side of any of the particular sets, and from there you'll be able to see the different opportunities to save a search or create an alert, etc. Now, once you've clicked on, I want to create an alert, for example, you're given an opportunity to use a wizard. There is more than one page of setup, so I wanted to point that out. In this case, here is my first, I'm going to create an alert. It tells me what I've been searching on. I can look at the different databases that I'm in, and then I'm going to add an alert name. So this is something that will be up to you to add to a listing so that you'll know exactly which alerts when you're looking for a particular topic. Then you can select recipients. So in this case, if this is your ID and password, you will automatically receive that alert unless you do choose to opt out of it. You could also send it to other people by clicking this box and adding different email addresses into the secondary recipients part. So you add your recipients. You can update the subject line so that it makes sense when it comes in an email to you what you're receiving. And then you select a frequency, typically weekly, could be monthly, could be daily. We even have a quarterly frequency, so you have a lot of choices about how frequently you want to receive your information. You get to select, if you are setting it for weekly, what day of the week you want to receive it on and what time of the day you would like to have that information be sent to you. If you're selecting a monthly alert frequency, then you can choose, I want it on the 1st, or I want it on the 8th, or whatever day is appropriate to you. And again, you get to select the time of day that it's sent to you. For customers who are doing regulatory searching, sometimes they want to set it for delivery early Monday morning, and you have that level of sophistication in our platform to be able to specify exactly when you want to receive the information. You may want to consider this checkbox. So send alert is scheduled even when no new documents match my strategy. So that is where you actually, it's often used for regulatory alerts, where I have to say, yes, I know for a fact that that alert ran, whether or not there were 0 hits. So it's not a matter of, gee, I didn't get that for a couple of weeks. I wonder if there were hits. You would be notified that there were 0 hits that match your strategy for that frequency of, if you did it weekly or monthly, what have you. Click the orange continue button, and you get to go to the second page where you get to make more choices. So here you have the opportunity to define whether or not you want newly published documents or including historical items. And I'm going to spend a moment on this because it's important you understand the definitions. The default is newly published documents only, and that is for anything that was published within the last 60 to 90 days. So if an article was published, let's say 91 days ago, and it was added to the database, you'd actually miss that article in your alert if you choose newly published documents only. So if you're wanting to stay on top of a subject but you don't have to have every last article, newly published documents might be just exactly what you need. If you're doing more of a regulatory search or any search where you need to make certain that you're really getting just about everything that's coming into the databases, then I would definitely select the including historical items as well. Now, you also get to choose how you want to receive this information. Most people who are looking at alerts might take it in HTML format, which will appear in your email, in the email. It's easy to read, but you also can choose, I want it delivered as a PDF document or an RTF document or even as an Excel document. We have many customers who use XML for importing into different analysis software, for example. So you have a lot of different ways to receive the information. And just in the same way that you would have to select when you export information from our platform, you get to choose how much information from every record you want to see. And there is, in fact, a custom format for alerts as well. So you get to choose, how much of each record will be sent to you in your alert. I also wanted to point out there are certain defaults so that we assume that you don't want to receive duplicate documents. That is the default, so if you want to include duplicate documents, you need to change that. Remember that duplicate documents will never be sent for your alert for the entire life of the alert. So if you've received a document one time, even if that document is added to a database 2 years from now, you will not be sent that document again because we keep track of the documents that you've already received. Include search details. That is, do you want to see the strategy that was used to create the alert? So again, we assume that you typically don't want to include that, but if you do, then click yes. And we also assume that you would like to see highlighting of your search terms, and that will be the default in creating an alert. At that point, just click the orange Create Alert button, and you are set to have that alert. I know we're going to go just a little bit over, so I'm also recording today's session, so if you have to leave early, that's fine. But I want to cover how do I manage my alerts and save searches. At this point, if you go to the My Research page, which can be accessed by clicking on My Research link at the upper right part of the screen, then you'll be able to see the different search or tabs that are available to track the different things that you've set up. So if I've set up a saved search, it'll appear in this tab, but we're looking here at the Alerts tab. You'll be able to see all the different alerts that you've set up, and initially just looking at the table, you can see this is actually called Example. That's the name of the alert. The frequency, when it's sent, so it's normally sent weekly on Mondays. The last amount of information that was sent was 23 documents. When the alert was last updated, and then you have some actions that you can take. You can open up the plus sign here and be able to see a little bit more information. You can modify that alert. But I also want to point out the resend history link. So if I click on that, that's going to allow me to see the history for the past year of the different cycles of information that were sent to me. So I can see that 60 documents matched last time, and that, or when it was sent on the 8th, and on the 1st, 96 documents, and 33 and 23, all the way back for an entire year. You'll be able to not only see how many records were sent, but you can actually resend those to yourself or to someone else based on the date that it was sent. So just click on that particular cycle and then choose who to send it to and send, and you don't have to worry about contacting us if you need to see some results that got lost somewhere. Finally, and I'm using this because we are almost at the end, I just want to mention the custom output and templates. If I am exporting information, I have the opportunity to set this to custom, and then I can choose the different fields that I'm interested in. So for the databases that I'm in, I'll be able to make a selection of all the different fields that are available for me to export. There are a couple of defaults that you can remove if you want, and that would be the ProQuest document link and the publication info. So we assume that you're typically going to want to keep the citation information, so we will list that under the publication info. The ProQuest document link is a link that you can use to click on, and it takes you back to that specific record within the ProQuest Dialog platform. Sometimes you'll want to have that, and sometimes maybe you don't want to use that. One thing you do want to include if you create a custom output is your outbound links, because that is your link to your full text. So oftentimes we have customers who remove the ProQuest document link but include the outbound link, so that when I give this to an end user, for example, that they will have the access to the full text and not worry about getting back into that particular record within the platform. You can create a template, and it's very simple. I select the custom formats that or fields that I want to use. I check the Save My Selections for future use, and then click the orange Continue button. And then that allows me to give it a name for the template, and at that point, once I've created that template, when I go to how much information I want to export, I can use my save. I can set it to the Save template, and then I can have one or more templates that I can choose from here that's displayed, and then I can just select exactly the one I'm interested in using. All right, and then those saved templates are also stored in the My Research area, so that if I want to see what fields that I've selected, or if I want to delete a particular one, I'm able to do that from the My Research part of my platform.
If you have any questions or if you need help, please feel free to call us at the numbers shown here, or you can email us at customer@dialog.com, and we'll be glad to help. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.